When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting, the A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night, download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind to Raw, another week here at Post Wrestling. John Pollock here alongside Wai Ting as we go through the world of professional wrestling, Raw in Winnipeg, and much more. How are you, Wai?
Doing all right, John. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. We have a lot to get to on tonight's show. We are going to be going through tonight's edition of Raw from Winnipeg, the big rematch between Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch, one that Canada will be talking about for minutes, and then we will also be recapping the latest AEW drama as well. Are you looking forward to this, Wai?
Not so much, but I know a lot of people will be. So yeah.
Well, we will try and keep it brief for everyone because it's just going to be an every couple of month exercise that we all go through, and we will represent each side, and then we will talk about what is going to happen, what is not going to happen, and then we will wash, rinse, and repeat. But we will also be discussing the G1 Climax, which concluded on Sunday. Now, before we go any further, Wai, have you gone spoiler-free? Do you know who won the G1 before we start? Because I'll just stop the show if you have not watched the final yet.
I have watched it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Well, everyone, Tetsuya Naito did it. He won his third G1 Climax, but I know most people listening to this, big deal. He's won how many G1s at this point? The question is, who won the G1 Climax contest at Post Wrestling? That's what I really want to know. Who came out on top of the prestigious E-Block? And here to join us, our favorite man, Chris Engler, who is here, the statistician here at Post Wrestling. And where are you joining us from tonight, Chris?
I'm joining from the G1 Contest Data Center. Where else?
Oh, look at that. Under lock and key. Look at all the servers here that have been working overtime this past summer to calculate all the potential outcomes of the 32-man field. And Chris is here, our own Price Waterhouse himself, to unseal the records and let us know who the winner is. I haven't even looked at the results, so I am hearing this for the first time.
Okay, great.
Who has come out on top? You let us know the results, Chris.
Sure. Well, do you want to start with that or some fun stats first to kind of build?
Let's do some fun stats. Let's build it up.
Okay. So we had good participation this year. The average points achieved across 112 block matches for a theoretical maximum of 112 was the average was about 64, just under 64 points. And
healthy number.
Yeah, pretty good overall. Let's do some upsets. I always like looking at the biggest upsets and the most accurately predicted matches. So I'll ask each of you, who do you figure was the biggest upset across all of the G1 block matches?
It has to be Shane Hayes pinning Hiroshi Tanahashi. That would be my pick off the top of my head.
It's got to be the draw, isn't it?
Sorry, non-draws. I said
non-draws. Okay.
Non-draws, yeah.
That or maybe a Hikuleo match.
Didn't Tongaloa beat Will Ospreay?
Would that be?
That was a draw, wasn't it? Didn't he hold him outside?
That's right. That's right. He got him counted out.
That was a not very highly predicted match. But John, did you perhaps mean Shane Hayes over Naito? I think you said Tom.
That's that. I'm mixing them up here. In my
you
head.
Are correct. That was the least accurately or the biggest upset. Only 13 of 202 people. And so, by contrast, what would you say was the biggest, the most accurately predicted match? This one's a little harder because there were a lot of. This was close. This one.
Boy, can I go with who would have been the least likely in the B block to beat Okada? I'll go with Okada on one side of the bracket. Am I close?
So I'll say that the most accurately predicted had 195 people predicted correctly. There was an Okada match that only had 192 people pick it correct.
Oh, but not
Okada over Hikuleo was 192, but the most accurately was actually Sonata over Gabe Kidd by a few, 195 of 202 people.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's
So-
that is one I would not have guessed off the top of my head to be the most one-sided choice among our listeners. Well, there we have it. Look at this.
Oh no, Tongaloa did beat Will. He jumped in at the last.
That's
second.
right. He attacked him on the floor.
Sorry,
and
Wade.
then
You were right.
there we have it. Okay. Well, there you go. Biggest upsets. Shane Haste over Tetsuya Naito, Tangaloa over Will Ospreay, and then Taichi over Will Ospreay, which it was on the first day. I didn't see the Taichi one as a crazy pick, but there you have it. A lot of people figured Will would just get the big win on the first day.
So let's get down to what people came here for, the actual contest itself. So, I mean, there was a name that was at the top of the contests since day 3 and all by himself since day 4. And as no surprise, Jeremy Finestone finished in first place. The interesting story, so he had a total of 80 points. He was the only person that broke 80 points, and he won by 4 points. So a very commanding win. Congratulations to Jeremy Finestone.
Congrats to Jeremy.
What was interesting was so Eric from Cork came in second with 76 points. We had a 3-way tie for third place. And 2 of the individuals there, Anthony C. and Scott S., they had so we went to tiebreakers. Our first level of tiebreakers is at the start. We also asked people to predict all the block winners and the overall winner, just as tiebreakers. And they had the exact same picks for their block winners and overall winner, which they got them all correct except for the B block. They both thought Ospreay would win the B block, which, I mean, not a crazy pick by any means. So they were tied there. So from there, we had to go to the next level of tiebreakers, which was, we go by the most perfectly predicted days, then count down. And they had the exact same number of correct days with 8 predictions, 7 predictions, 6 predictions, and 5 predictions. So we had to go to the most correct days with 4 correct predictions. And Anthony S. had one more such day over Scott. So congratulations by the slimmest of, I think that's the closest it's ever been.
My goodness. So we had to go into like triple overtime here. So Anthony C. secures the bronze medal of the Post Wrestling G1 contest. A well-earned third place finish for Anthony.
And I think we'll appropriately finish off with the Post Wrestling family block.
Yes, let us know. Where did Wai end up?
Well, unfortunately, Wai ended up. WH Park said earlier on in his coverage that if you're not going to be first, you should go after last. So I think Wai, you locked that one down. You unfortunately finished last, and not to stomp on you when you're down, but you were the only person in the E block that did not finish better than Randobot.
Oh,
Okay.
WH Park and Randobot finished with the same number of points, but I did check. WH did beat Randobot on tiebreakers. So
look at us, all the dwellers here at the bottom here. I didn't do much better. So this was a humbling experience.
And in a story that Gato could have booked, I mean, if we scroll back up to the top, so a name we heard often was John Kleinchester. He was frequently at the top of the block, but he actually went down to second. And he was tied with Lowdown Davey P. But Davey also did very well on his tiebreaker predictions. He predicted 3 out of the 4 block winners correctly and the overall G winner. The only one he didn't predict correctly, he had again, not a crazy pick. He had Kaito Kiyomiya winning the A block. And John K, unfortunately, the only thing he got correct in the tiebreakers was the winner of the A block in Sonata. So Lowdown Davey P, again, you could call it Lowdown Tactics, but ekes out second place on tiebreakers. But the overall winner was Brandon Thurston.
Wow!
If you look at him tracking throughout, like he literally started on early in the contest, like in last place.
Oh, he was mentally done, a week into this.
But very just methodically in those 8 match cards was consistently getting like 4 or 5 points, just very quietly going up the ladder 1 or 2 steps at a time, and then made his move late in the game and sniped first place. So big congratulations to to Brandon Thurston. Oh, and there was one thing I didn't want to come on without mentioning, that, we may have to look into Jeremy Finestone, because the uncanniness of his predictions were just that, uncanny. So you'll recall that there was a draw on the very last day of the D block, and Jeremy was the only person at the start of the contest to pick that match, the Shane Haste Jeff Cobb match. He was the only person to pick that as the draw. I looked back. That is the only time in the history of the G1 contest that a single person has scored a point that nobody else got. So for him to have predicted that prior to the start of the G1, that's really impressive. Borderline suspicious. But
what are you implying here, Chris? What could there be?
I'm not implying. I just observe and report.
Well, clearly, Jeremy Finestone is code name for Gato.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Jado, actually.
But yeah.
Is there?
Congratulations.
Can we at least give? Do you have like the person that scored the least amount of points in the whole
I do,
thing?
yes.
Who came in dead last? Who was the Joe Rules of this?
It looks like it was
a gentleman by the name of Mike Weiss.
Weiss.
And look at me, I'm like only a few points ahead of him.
You beat him by 10, Way. You're not that.
Oh God, I was still like fourth last of this entire thing. Wow.
But what was very interesting is this year, more so than any other year, like Randobot didn't have a great year, but still guessed just under 50% of the block matches correctly, which in a completely random selection you would expect to happen. But more so than any other year by a lot, which is impressive considering all these 8-match cards. 95% of contestants did as good or better than Randobot this year compared to prior years. So overall, people's accuracy was up this year significantly.
What does this tell you about the fear of AI when Randobot is getting beaten out by 95% of humans?
People really put some thought into these predictions. It wasn't just let me just click and get it in and hope for the best.
I think next year we have to like soup up Randobot and have like a real like a chat GBT that can go through every have it like really functional to get into Gato's mind.
Would actually win.
We might get Jeremy Finestone himself just processed out of this all.
Maybe that's what Jeremy Finestone is.
That could be it.
Jeremy is in the chat. He says, this contest was a blast. I was very humbled to do so well, and I'd like to thank everyone at Post Wrestling for the comprehensive coverage of the G1 Climax 33. Covering the shows are not easy. Sounds like something that could be written by Jado or Gato, I think.
Not at this hour, I don't think. I mean, it's early. It's early Tuesday morning. I don't think he would be. We have to give credit where it's due. But congratulations to Jeremy, our big winner. Congratulations to Brandon Thurston, the come from behind victory. I don't know if there was any Python shenanigans that went into his picks, but it was a brilliant comeback by one Brandon Thurston. So, and of course, Chris, always appreciate your great attention to detail, keeping everybody updated on a near daily basis throughout the G1. And now, you get to now go into hibernation until the Royal Rumble. You pop out, you do double the dates of Santa Claus every year for us. So we greatly appreciate that. And I do look forward to the Royal Rumble pool, as I was anticipating spelling mistakes when I realized I had my pools mixed up. So I'll have to wait till January for that.
Yeah, that's always the most fun part of the Rumble, is the interesting ways people communicate the names of wrestlers.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us tonight, Chris, giving us the update. And again, thank you for all the hard work you put in for these pools and help them run smoothly.
You're welcome. And I think live now is these full results with some extra stats are going to be on postwrestling.com. One final update. So
everything is up there right now at postwrestling.com/G1. Thank you so much, Chris, for getting up in the morning, every single one of these G1s, and tabulating those results and having that ready for everybody. You make these so much more fun for everybody who not just covers these, but listens to these podcasts as in a part of the site. So thank you so much, Chris.
You're welcome. It's a lot of fun for me too. I enjoy doing it.
All right. You can power down the servers, and we'll talk to you soon, Chris.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris Engler, everybody.
Follow him at cengler42 on Twitter if you have any questions about, further stats or maybe how you did. And also, let's give a plug here for our winner, Jeremy Feinstone, who actually hosts a podcast himself. It is called the Speaking of Strong Style podcast, and I believe he's talked a whole lot about his selection process for the G1. So if you want to get his takes, he is part of the Fight Game Media Network. So look for Fight Game Media Network on wherever you download your podcast and listen to Speaking of Strong Style.
Wait, any thoughts on the final with Tetsuya Naito and Kazuchika Okada? We have our final podcast up from Sunday with Karen Peterson and WH Park joining me. We went through it. We pretty much raved about the match, but what did you think about the final weekend for Naito and getting his third G1 win?
Oh man, I thought this, in terms of like a resurgence for Naito, this was really an incredible weekend for him. These G1 1-2 performances over a weekend are typically pretty impressive, but there's a very high standard for them, and I thought Naito met them. What was especially concerning was just seeing at the end of the finish of that Ospreay match, which is going to certainly be a contender for match of the year for me. It was concerning because he got knocked out, or at least knocked loopy at the end of that match, how he was going to look on the Sunday. And I mean, pulled out another magnificent performance. I prefer the Ospreay match personally, but the Okada match was absolutely, absolutely fantastic.
How was Oscar's second G1 final?
Was he alive last time?
He was, I think, 5 days old.
Okay. I mean, I think he had a pretty good day, but I think that was regardless of the G1 final. Yeah.
Okay. He wasn't like rooting for Okada. He was open-minded going into this final, or was I bet he was banking on Evil, wasn't he?
I think he was more of a Kiyomiya guy. He was hoping he'd pull through.
Oh, I see. A lot of people got hung up on Kiyomiya. Well, yeah. Well, wait. Now your training can begin for next year's pool. You can start now. Really try and study Geto and try and figure things out. If you Kiyomiya, I think I bet you Kiyomiya screwed up a lot of people's ballots or entries.
Possibly. I mean, honestly, this year I just picked randomly, and clearly picking randomly is not good enough for the G1 pool anymore.
No, Randobot. I mean, the times are changing, so you can't just be picking blindly. All right. And thanks to everybody that checked out all of our G1 coverage. All of those podcasts live up on the Post Wrestling Cafe that you can go back and listen to, as well as our match recommendations. Myself, WH, and Karen, we went through performer of the G1, our top matches of the tournament, as well as some picks of who we would like to see included in next year's tournament. And we will see what changeover there is next year. But coming out of this show, you have Tetsuya Naito that has won the G1 and in theory sets him up for a match with Sonata on January 4th. Now, in between then, Sonata is expected to defend the title against Evil. And they're doing this deal with Naito where they're not using a contract this year. So his thing is, well, if they match me with Jeff Cobb and no contracts on the line, what is preventing me from just losing in 5 seconds? Why would I go all out for a match that I don't need to win? So he has no incentive since he's got this Tokyo Dome locked up, and he values headlining the Tokyo Dome above going for the the IWGP World Heavyweight title. So that could be fun if he just lays down for Jeff Cobb and in 5 seconds and then rolls out of the ring. And then Jeff Cobb gets on the mic and says, "Is this your deal, Geto? This is why this damn company is in the shape it's in, because of bullshit like this."
Yes. Interesting that he'd poke holes at, like, has New Japan explained why they're not doing the contract this year?
They didn't do it last year, I don't think.
So there's no briefcase.
There's no briefcase. It seems like he's in for the dome. So he could just cruise for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I guess I wonder why they would get rid of it.
Yeah, or they could always, maybe they institute it at the last minute. They force them to have to put this up. Whatever they do. He is also the first name that's been announced for Royal Quest 3, as they will be going to the Copper Box Arena, which RevPro is running next week in London. That's going to be on October the 14th. So this is going to be just days apart from the Sumo Hall show. They're doing Sumo Hall October 9th. So in theory, that would be Sonata and Evil. And then the 14th, I'm thinking that would be the place for Ospreay to defend this UK championship, and you've set up Yota Tsuji as that challenger. So that could potentially headline the card at the Copper Box Arena. But they have set up a ton of matches coming out of the the weekend at Sumo Hall. You've got Oleg Boltin, who gets a future television title shot. You have Coughlin and Kidd teasing a match with Goto and Yoshihashi, the battle of the IWGP and Strong Openweight Tag Champions. Eddie Kingston and Aaron Henare is expected to take place in Vegas at the end of October. You have David Finlay and Tama Tonga for the Never title, and the big one, Show, pinning KOPW champion Taichi, which that could bump Naito and Sonata to, the mid card of the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, the match could be great.
What do you see as what do you see for Okada the rest of this year or leading into the Tokyo Dome? Like, what is the most appealing route for him now that he is removed from the title picture?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think at this point there are a lot of big name opponents still left for him. Of course, he has the Kiyomiya program that's going on, but he also has Bryan Danielson in a rematch there. I almost feel like that's a bit more likely for the Tokyo Dome at Wrestle Kingdom, just as a match to cater to sort of like the North American base. So I probably lean towards that being the direction. Of course, as long as Danielson is healthy.
For the Tokyo Dome, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were discussing this. It's like where you get to this eventual Kiyomiya rematch, and maybe if for the third year in a row they're doing the New Japan Noah Wrestle Kingdom in January, maybe that's sort of the level of show you're expecting Okada and Kiyomiya. Which I don't know. It is somewhat puzzling, Kiyomiya's role in this G1. I don't think this involvement like rose him up the stakes. Like I don't think if you're just a strict New Japan follower, I don't think you're coming away from this tournament wowed by Kiyomiya and like there was no involvement with Okada. I don't know. Like,
I can agree with that. I can agree with that if you're strictly looking at the booking, but I think if you watch the matches, he's been a consistent highlight throughout the G1, at least for me. Like I always felt like his matches and his performances stood out. So in that sense, I think he made a good impression for his company and himself. But you're right. Like, at least in terms of booking, I figured he'd at least go past, the blocks.
Yeah. There is like, I don't even mind holding off on the match with Okada, but it just felt like by the end of it, like here was a guy that was just like middle rung A block guy. And he did have some very good performances. I just don't know how this really served the purpose of building to something bigger for him, that you're coming out as like one of the predominant themes of the G1. But anyway, lots of thoughts on our show from Sunday, so you can go check that out. We're going to move along to Saturday night's main event, which is when the cameras go dark, the main event lights turn on as CM Punk finished up his match with FTR against the House of Black. And you know what? He decided right after the House of Black, let's get on the house mic. And with that, CM Punk proceeded to cut a promo on Hangman Page, calling him a peg warmer because his toys don't sell at the local Toys R Us. I guess CM Punk was undercover. He was like looking up like who sells merch at the local toy store.
Well, they don't have Toys R Us's in the US unfortunately anymore, but wherever they were selling toys.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will put that down on my notes. So he cuts his promo on Hangman Page and is getting booed. Like you can hear the crowd like not wanting to hear this guy like rail on Hangman Page. And then I guess afterward he tried to more endear himself to this audience. But that was kind of the big talk of Collision afterward. It wasn't anything that happened on the show. It was all contained to why we are bringing all this stuff back up to the surface. And I was hearing about it that night, and then the next day a lot more came to the surface about the issues that have been going on regarding Collision, regarding those that have been on the show, those that have been booked for the show and then told at the last minute they're no longer needed. First of all, let's kind of just break this up and then we'll get into some of the latter. But going to the promo itself, and like this is part of the issue that all of this was built upon, was guys going out there and in the case of Punk, like actively calling out Hangman Page in that promo last year. Like this is all stuff that just fostered all of these problems. And here we are going right back to that thing. Now, this was not on live television, but nonetheless, like this is 2023.
As good as live TV.
This was going to be online in seconds, and it was. And this just blew up the next day. And to no one's surprise, it did. And just the idea that here we are, and, anyone thinking this was just going to be drama-free would have been kidding themselves. This was always going to be like these contentious issues. But now, again, it has come onto your screen, onto your computer, and it's hitting you right in the face of these issues that have nothing to do with business, this is not leading to a match at All In. This is not leading to a match at All Out, but it is going to be the focus for another at least 24 hours.
Sure. Yeah. It's got no effect on any immediate business, but do we have any sort of idea what CM Punk thinks it may lead to? At this point, is he simply saying these things because he's genuinely pissed off, or does he feel like he's trying to do somebody somewhere a business, promotional favor? Who knows what goes on in that man's mind. He has really kind of, shown himself to be one of the more erratic, unpredictable figures in all of professional wrestling. And the fact that he not only do we have this story of this live dark promo to kind of discuss, but all these other stories following that really seem to continue to make this story just completely more bizarre and that much more interesting. I think it calls a lot of attention to all the issues that existed leading up to all out last year. And I think something like this, if all these reports are to be true, believed to be true, or at least even partially true, it tells you a lot about how much might have been addressed in the meantime and how much might have been fixed in the meantime. And that answer would probably be not much.
Okay, so I've taken portions of the reporting that has been out there and some stuff that had been conveyed to me as well. So this is from Wade Keller at Pro Wrestling Torch. So coming out of Saturday, one of the other, quickly after this promo, there began, a discussion about Ryan Nemeth, who was apparently booked for Collision and then told at the last minute he was no longer needed for the show. And then from there, it came up about an issue that Punk and Nemeth had back on the June 21st Dynamite. This was the lone Dynamite that Punk has been on since coming back, which was in Chicago the week going into Forbidden Door. And going prior to that was a tweet that Ryan Nemeth made upon Punk's return, and just tweeting out something to the effect of literally the softest person out there, or whatever it was, the exact wording of which. Not specifically naming Punk, but I think everyone realizing exactly who he was referring to. So from Wade Keller stated that, this is for the first part. Let's cover the Ryan Nemeth part. So at the Dynamite, this would have been on June 21st, Pro Wrestling Torch sources indicated that Punk confronted Nemeth in the locker room. The story conveyed to the Torch is that Punk cornered Nemeth in the locker room, got inches from his face, and angrily and aggressively asked if they had a problem or if they needed to settle things outside. Punk cited to Nemeth that his comments on Twitter inflamed existing tensions and that the optics of the tweet sent a bad message. This incident was witnessed by numerous wrestlers and was characterized as awkward and weird. Nemeth moved the argument to the hallway, where Punk continued to berate him, according to our sources. Nemeth defended his judgment in calling Punk soft, since Punk fired the first shots at the Bucks. Punk pushed back that his timing was bad and worked against the public image that they were going for, that everyone was either on the same page or at least not inflaming prior issues. Nemeth then asked Punk if he shouldn't react to things Punk says on TV, and Punk said that'd be the right choice at that time. Then they shook hands, but apparently the tension was still high as they went their separate ways. Nemeth confided the incident in friends backstage and asked how to handle the situation. Nemeth has almost no leverage in AEW compared to Punk, who's a much bigger star. Then backtracking to this past weekend, Nemeth arrived at Collision in Greensboro Saturday night for his first scheduled match in a while, but was told he wasn't needed anymore and was given an itinerary to return home, according to a Fightful report. And so that's the Ryan Nemeth situation of things. So let's go through this story. So Nemeth tweets this out, and Punk is clearly aware of this and confronts him on the June 21st Dynamite. Now, if you are to take this report as Punk, do we have an issue or do we have to settle this outside? The idea of Punk coming back, and almost having a fight on what would have been his second night back after the United Center return. That would have just been a nuclear incident had he ended up getting into a fight over a tweet on his second night back. Now, was it as heated as that? I mean, that is for you to determine, but that's what's being reported here. And this would be the first kind of story that people were focusing on, in addition to like the Hangman Page situation, which is a little more unclear in terms of the fact is that he was apparently booked for Collision on Saturday, and then once he arrived in the city, was told that was no longer, he was not to be at the building. And people are concluding that this is Punk related. And the fact that he several hours later cuts this promo on Hangman Page, well, if Punk's side is stating they had nothing to do with this, kind of paints you into a corner when there's other people. It seems like it's a he said, she said of who was involved directly in this Hangman thing.
Right. Yeah. So again, a lot of this is from reporting that I certainly trust, and I think, but at the same time, like I understand it's all one side of the story. Like at least in most of these instances, whoever's kind of talking to the reporters, like I feel like that we're not necessarily hearing from Punk himself. We might be hearing from people representing his side, but I just leave it to open to like, is there some broken telephone involved? But we do know at least, I do believe like, this Nemeth and Punk interaction occurred. And even if that's true, I find it pretty crazy how in trying to create a calm, peaceful working environment, the man sounded like he was doing the complete opposite by, raising tensions just, over a tweet that was sent out so much, I don't know, several months ago. And just, I guess like in his mind, it feels like it's some sort of like keeping the peace, but what it does come across as, just even hearing that story again through several filters, it sounds like bullying. And I'm sure there are ways that you could, create some sort of like relief of like to sort differences if CM Punk and Ryan Nemeth had to work together in the same locker room. I don't think that sounded like the way to do things. And beyond that, how are these guys getting booked? If like, is this the only instance of Ryan Nemeth getting told to leave?
Ryan Nemeth was a regular on Dark and Dark Elevation. He has not done any AEW related dates since May when he did an ROH match, which was not. Okay. Which was done at Universal Studios. So, I mean, it's been months since he has been booked by AEW.
So who is booking him and who is booking Hangman Page when like,
so this is a major issue. And it's like, ultimately, whatever your conclusion of this is, and you can have, you can point fingers all you want. None of these moves are happening without the approval of Tony Khan. Like the buck stops with Tony Khan, and
you would think, yes.
Well, these are ultimately like, this is his company, and if somebody is, stating, I don't want this person here, that ultimately has to be approved. To me, it takes a different level of, it's just a different level of complexity when we're getting to the point. It's one thing that you're sitting at home and you may not know why. It's quite another when you are literally being told to be at TV and you are traveling to that destination, and when arriving told, sorry, we don't need you. And you
can't even come to the building. You can't even enjoy the catering.
Like, you are not even getting on television like Ronda Rousey to deliver 3 words first before you have to go back and travel home. So like the frustration level, if you are on the receiving end, I would imagine is at a 10. If you've missed a whole travel day, you've got, you're leaving, you're like, you are just showing up to work and are being told not to work. That's a frustrating issue of this. Now I'm going to add, this was the final paragraph on the Torch story. that when Punk first returned, So Punk otherwise has received good reviews for his leadership behind the scenes. He is fiercely protective of Collision being a low drama environment, which is why he doesn't want wrestlers he perceives as disloyal or too closely aligned with the elite crew to be backstage at Collision. He sees Collision as his show and his chance to provide the type of leadership that he is critical of the executive vice presidents not providing on Dynamite. But that has extended to Punk having essentially veto power over who can be present backstage at Collision events.
He wants the show to be so drama free that he's willing to get on the
low
mic
drama
and
low
directly
drama
call out Hangman Page to an entire audience. Yes.
Listen, I don't doubt that there's no way to just have one answer for this. I am sure you could survey people in AEW and there are going to be differing views on CM Punk. I am sure there are many that do see him as a leader that may side with the fact that why is this guy tweeting something about our top star? It's just causing problems. The point being that when this guy is allegedly setting out this edict of we want a low drama environment, and then you break your own edict on a microphone for what? For what? For a cheap pop? For all that comes with this? Like, how can you lead by example when you're going out on television and not even for the first time? Like, this guy has now gone on television and literally called out Hangman Page to fight and made him look like a coward. He went at the press conference and dude, the guy that arguably took the worst of that maybe was Colt Cabana, but number 2 was Hangman Page, who was just, and again, not in the building and has no recourse. And now this is a third time that he gets attacked verbally and has no recourse either.
Yeah.
It's
really funny when you put it that way.
I mean, it's like
it's comical.
This guy has just re-signed with your company, and like Hangman Page to me has like listen.
He hasn't said a thing. At least just not publicly.
Not publicly. He is not now. So further to this, beyond Nick Nemeth and Hangman Page, we go to others that apparently have been told like similar, getting to Collision and being told they are not needed. So Nick Hausman from House of Wrestling wrote that House of Wrestling has confirmed that at least 2 of these men not being backstage at Collision stem from issues with CM Punk. Notably, Christopher Daniels' involvement in the post-AEW all-out altercation was specifically portrayed to us as the reason that Daniels is not at Collision. Since Ace Steel, Punk's good friend, was also involved in the altercation, but not allowed to return backstage for Collision, Punk is said to feel the same about Daniels and does not want him backstage either. We have not heard anything in regard to Punk asking to have Page or Hardy not be present at the Greensboro Coliseum for the taping. However, we were told that Punk's post-Collision promo comments about Page did not come across how he would have liked them and that he felt bad about them afterward. At this time, the Elite and Punk have not met to bury the hatchet, but it sounds like Punk is keeping the door open to that possibility. So that very much sounds like this is coming from the Punk.
How did you mean the promo to come across? This is what I really want to know.
He meant to say he moves merch at the speed of light. This guy is a valuable player for years to come, and it's a bargain that we got this guy for multi-years with this upcoming deal. I have no idea how he intended this to come across, but it was if he comes out and issue like I have no idea. That one was,
if that's true. I mean, the man is just like he's just a moron. You know, like he's a guy who clearly has issues thinking before he speaks into a public microphone. Like what did he intend at all? And like if this Chris Daniels Ace Steel thing is true, that's the pettiest shit I've ever heard. Because you're gonna ban my guy, I'm gonna ban your guy.
Let's be clear. Christopher Daniels is your head of talent relations. Like that is an ultimate, and that to me is. Christopher Daniels is maybe the one that is I'm seeing getting like the least focus, but that to me tells me like the power game that ability is there to withhold your head of talent relations. And listen, you can lay blame across many parties. I don't want this to come across as like this is all on one person, the all out brawl, but Christopher Daniels, from all accounts, was in there to break things up in his role. And this man was not accused of biting anyone. This guy was not accused of being an aggressor in any sense. So I don't look at all of these examples. I don't look at him and Ace Steel as like equals on opposing parties at all. If anything, like Daniels was in his role as head of talent relations as a fight is breaking out. And the fact, again, that this comes back to that if Daniels, your head of talent relations, cannot enter his building that he works at, again, like that comes down to like, if Punk is pushing this and he is not being told from above that, no, you cannot do that, then it's like
that means he's allowed to do it. That means he clearly has
like,
jurisdiction.
If you're turning a blind eye to this, or this is not being, you're not putting your foot down, you're ultimately telling him that you are within your parameters to do this. And he, in his mind, I don't believe this is some guy that is trying to concoct some evil scheme. I think he has a real honest belief of what he wants this locker room to be made up on. And I think he has a very clear picture of who he wants and who he does not want. And it's for the good of this company. But at the same time, it is like he is being given, I think, a lot of leeway. And it seems that the Daniels and Ryan Nemeth, those are the ones that are not being disputed. And from the latest Observer update today is that the
not being disputed that they are CM Punk calls. Is that what you're saying?
This is from Dave Meltzer's update today. The CM Punk camp has claimed that they did not get Adam Page or Matt Hardy, who was another name thrown out here, booted from recent Collision shows. But a number of reports said he did so with Christopher Daniels, who is head of talent relations. Others have claimed he did with Page and Hardy, and much of the locker room believes that. One person claimed he didn't even know Page was in Greensboro. There have been people who said he was responsible for Ryan Nemeth being out, and that was a major cause of concern on Saturday night in the company, both from those in Greensboro and those not. But others have claimed that was a management call and not a Punk call. So, I mean, there's a lot of just competing narratives here.
There's a lot of bullshit here, you know, and it's all... Sorry, please go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just stating that in the court of public opinion, I don't think that this is going to change people's perception. If you are viewing this through the lens of Punk in the right, then I think this is only going to embolden your belief of that. And I think if you are looking at this from the opposite side, I think that this only further is going to drive people to believe that CM Punk has this unchecked power that is very click-like, that he has the ability and he's being allowed
it's more than
to
that,
exercise
John. Like,
this power.
Has the clique ever been able to, like, you know, demand people like get kicked out of buildings?
I
Send
don't know
people
if ever,
home that were already on the rundown. Have they been able to do that?
I can tell you, I've
This
never
guy
heard a
has his
story
own
of
show.
like the clique saying like JJ Dillon had to like leave the building, the head of talent relations.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, this is also like, I feel like with these stories, and the man has adamantly denied them, and Tony Khan has backed him up. But do people view the Colt Cabana story differently when you're hearing this? Like, here is somebody that professed that he would do nothing to affect where Colt Cabana works and where he goes. And you're seeing like elements of that now applied to other people who, like in a Ryan Nemeth, had a much less relationship with CM Punk and not having lawsuits flowing back and forth with one another. And again, he has denied all of that with Cabana, but you're looking at this and it's like all of this stuff is just resurfacing again. And to me, I'm not stunned by any of this. I'm not aghast at any of it. When you wanted to try and acquiesce and keep all of these parties in-house, there was a reason for it. And I'm not even stating like this is what you're getting. Like, you are keeping these contentious personalities all under one roof. And this show on Saturday is built around this individual. And this is somebody who is going to exercise that power. And this is an industry where there's few that ever have power that they can truly utilize. Like, there are going to be those that are going to applaud somebody for having this kind of sway within a company and using it to, in his mind, the benefit of this show to this company. But there are definitely those in this locker room that are going to look at this as this is just the latest round of chaos that everybody is going to be focusing on. And again, we're spending 25 minutes talking about nothing related to these pay-per-views coming up or any on-screen program. It's, again, the behind the scenes.
Well, it's fiercely interesting and somewhat entertaining as well. You know, we spent a whole half hour talking about Bash of the Beach. I mean, they made a whole 1 hour documentary on Bash of the Beach, didn't they? I mean, and people still talk about something like that 20 years later. That doesn't mean it's good for business. And I don't know if this is, John, because
I don't think this is good for. I don't think this adds any interest to the on-screen product. I don't think. Listen, is there a day you might see a match a year from now? This stuff is not going to enhance any of this. If anything, this is.
I think it makes the company look like shit, dude. Like, I mean, it makes Tony Khan look terrible. The fact that all these stories are out and they're
and he commented when he was asked today. He was on the Battleground podcast.
Yeah.
Listen, there is a desperate need for on the record responsibility and ownership of these stories.
Yeah. So, I mean, the man has had a year to fix this. Speaking of Tony, he's had a year to fix these issues. And granted, this is, you know, probably a very complicated person, set of people and a set of egos that you have to deal with that probably won't be easy. But has anything improved in the last 12 months? You can argue they're worse because you've given the guy who many people perceive as the instigator that much more power to do whatever he wants with this show that is entirely held onto him and his star power. So God, like,
would you risk that relationship if it came down to putting your foot down and he would threaten to walk? And I'm not saying
so when are the negotiations for a collision? For those,
I mean, it's going to be like concurrent with like Dynamite, so
which is expected to be
like end of 2024.
Okay, because I would suggest using him for all his name value is worth just to get that contract, and then just if the guy's still not in line, man. Cut bait at this point.
Yeah, but, and I don't mean to belittle or make this seem like this is some easy fix. Like if I was in that position and there was the threat of losing this guy on my Saturday night show, yeah, like stars are going to have more leeway. Anyone pretending that isn't a reality is kidding themselves.
Yeah, but to what extent? You know, like I don't see this ever happening in the WWE right now, ever. Okay, like because the company, and this is good and this is bad, but the company is bigger than any single person. If Roman Reigns had a fit and wanted somebody out of his locker room, okay, maybe they'd acquiesce to that. But to have like a guy come out, go on a live microphone, berate half the locker room, and then just continue to like go on, like even in a dark match or post-show promo, call somebody out, that stuff doesn't go unpunished. And that stuff is certainly not rewarded with more power. Like, this is crazy that we're even talking about this.
I mean, you can argue the guy that has pushed his weight the most has been like a Brock Lesnar, and it's been a very effective tool for him in terms of like
in
not to
way?
This degree. Somebody that has just been, you know, that has
who's he gotten fired?
He hasn't gotten anyone fired. CM Punk has not gotten anyone fired.
Okay, but who has Brock Lesnar, I guess, got?
There's not an equivalent to what we're seeing here. And again, a lot of this is going to be like disputed, I think, to say the least, on the Punk side, and have this. But it's clear, like I think like all sides are being represented in a lot of this reporting. I don't think this is like this is clearly not just you know, a pocket.
I guess even just going by what we can see on the surface, there's only one person speaking directly to the public and, you know, directly like calling out Page, calling out Cole, calling out the Elite by name on the microphone. And that's Punk. I mean, I guess you could make the argument like, okay, is it better to say something live in front of the public or to say it to reporters behind people's back? I think it's, I can only speak.
How about you go on the record tomorrow and just put out your whole story? Well, this is what's happened. This is not what's happened. This is accurate. This is not inaccurate. This is my reasoning for this.
You mean Punk? You want Punk to just do an interview and talk about all this?
He doesn't have to do an interview. He can go on Instagram Live tomorrow.
Right.
Why not?
Well, he has done that in the past, hasn't he? On his IG stories. addressed, reports that are true or false. Maybe he's gotten shit for that too, because that tends to only make things worse, unfortunately.
What does that mean? Get shit?
I don't know. Get a talking to?
Get a suspension? Get a fine?
No, he won't be suspended.
What kind of discipline is he facing for public comments?
He'll get another 2-hour TV show.
Like, we know there's limitations of like they have agreed like sides that cannot talk about one another, but Page is not part of this. Clearly, he could openly talk to 5,000 people on Saturday night about Hangman Page.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think it all reflects really poorly on AEW, at a time where I think the wrestling has still been really good. And even when Punk was not a part of this company, like, I would say things were pretty good. Like, people like Mox, I feel, are the guys that we should be spending a lot more time talking about instead.
Even he had his comments about this on Renee's podcast. Do you remember where he was talking about all this juvenile drama stuff?
It's juvenile. It is. And what does it say about us?
But he didn't get a talking to. Did he?
Mox?
Yeah.
Well, he's right. It is completely juvenile.
Okay. Well, I'm just stating, like, again, there are those that, have made comments and they were approached in a locker room. And
oh, you mean like in the way that Nemeth got a comment? Well, I guess Nemeth's comment was
what's
more
the difference?
direct. Well, the difference is Punk has a much higher status, and Ryan Nemeth to CM Punk is a much easier target to, give a talking to than a Mox.
So, any other thoughts on this? Like, I don't want to spend any more time on this than we have to, but we have already spent a lot of it on this. I mean, it's just like this is going to happen again. There are going to continue to be issues. This is the reality of trying to, like, and I understand both sides. Like, would sitting CM Punk at home have been a great business decision? No.
So the other thing about all this that I find curious is we continue to hear that CM Punk wants to sit down with the elite, but he's not been able to. Well, what do you make of that?
I think that's
not been allowed to, I should say.
That's the decision. They don't want to sit down with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could argue, like, if like, I can't get into Tony Khan's head. Like, what is his objective? Is his objective to get these guys to work together, or is his objective for these guys to coexist on separate shows?
His objective
on separate shows. Why? If that's all I want, I don't want.
His objective is to make as much money as he can.
Okay, and I would say that at this point, if this is Punk's way of trying to work towards that, I would say he's failing miserably at the chance of rebuilding that to the idea. Like, I don't get the sense like this is going to suddenly his phone is going to ring and here's Hangman with 5 weeks of TV in mind.
Yeah, it's just really strange that they would get as far as to like book certain talents to come and then just maybe at the last minute, get them like shoved away. That's a lot of wasted, air miles and a lot of wasted time for a lot of people.
At the very least, like, okay, let's make it clear, like, who is going to be on this show and who's not going to be on this show, and we're not going to book people for these shows, and we're not going to send them to travel, Ryan Nemeth from California to Greensboro, and then send them on a plane back home.
It just seems to indicate a lot of disorganization. A lot of maybe lack of structure, lack of official sort of rank as far as like who's actually in control versus who isn't. And again, makes the company look bad.
All right. Let's move on quickly. Notes SmackDown very quickly. They were down on Friday because there were a ton of NFL preemptions that caused SmackDown to be preempted in various markets. So they did 2,097,000 viewers and a 0.55 in the demo, down 7 and 11% respectively. So they got hit a lot by the NFL. Interestingly enough, biggest number in Canada since the Friday after WrestleMania. So no NFL hitting them there. They were second for the night in sports in Canada. But the US number, they were down big in 18-34. That's where they were hit pretty sizably. Rampage did 398,000 viewers and a 0.15 in the demo. So viewership was down this week, but the demo was up for the second week in a row and their highest 18-49 number since April. So it was a higher 35-49 number. They were up 27%. 18-34 was down. And this was the show that included Orange Cassidy defending the international title. You had a crazy match with Brian Cage and Darby Allin opening up the show. And then you also had the main event with Saraya beating Sky Blue to advance to All In the 4-way women's match. So, 199,000 viewers for Rampage is, to me, like, that is your best case scenario these days for Rampage. If you're hitting 200, I think that's that's a very good number for Rampage as the third show that they're doing. So those were your ratings notes. And Tuesday night on NXT, we have Dijak against Wesley. The winner will face Carmelo Hayes at Heatwave the next week. Tony D'Angelo and Stax take on the Dyad for the tag titles, and Trick Williams against Drew Gulak, Dana Brooke against Blair Davenport. And one other item that I wanted to get to, because Brendan Thurston had this up, is that the WWE, they have responded to the first amended complaint from the MLW lawsuit. And in this, it's a 25-page response that WWE provided addressing all of the things that MLW has alleged. And one of the interesting portions of this answer is, so when we go back to August of 2021, MLW was on literally the night before they were about to announce their deal with Tubi. That was they reached an agreement around July 22nd, and the deal was going to be announced publicly on August 10th. And on August 9th, all of a sudden, Tubi pulls out at literally like the final hour with MLW out of nowhere. And MLW in this suit, they had alleged that Stephanie McMahon had contacted Tubi and had threatened Tubi, that is affiliated with Fox. And to MLW, they alleged that they were threatening like SmackDown on Fox, which sounds ludicrous that they would go to such a length. But in this answer, WWE admits that on or about August 9th, 2021, Stephanie McMahon spoke with a Tubi executive. WWE denies the allegations. These are outlined. The allegations in the fifth. Okay, so as such, WWE lacks knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to the truth of the allegations. So in a nutshell here, they are not disputing that Stephanie McMahon contacted a Tubi executive the night before this deal was to be announced, and then the deal was killed that same night. So that's not a great, like, that certainly paints it as like, yeah, we had a conversation with Stephanie McMahon, and then separate from that, we decided to just pull the plug on this deal. So, interesting here, but they are denying that there was, I guess, threats involved, but they're acknowledging the phone call, because I would imagine that MLW probably has evidence of this call. So it would make no sense to, I mean, if you have, say, this Tubi executive that they can depose, or, you have under oath that's going to state, I got this phone call by Stephanie McMahon. Now it comes down to what was the content of that phone call. And in fact, was a direct threat made to kill this deal for Tubi. Anyway,
so where are we at with all this? Like,
I mean, they're hoping to like go into discovery, I believe, like this week. So that's where that suit is moving. And we'll probably touch a bit about this later this week, because we're having a gentleman by the name of Eric McGraken on this Wednesday on Pollock and Thurston. He is with a Combat Sports Law, and we're going to be going into the UFC antitrust suit and a lot that you can extrapolate over to the MLW lawsuit with WWE from that. And, the UFC antitrust suit, it got ruled last week, can proceed as a class action suit. So I am sure that it's both suits are going to be focused upon if you're Endeavor, and how one can play out if it has an impact on the other as well. So I could certainly see crossover between the two in terms of how these are being handled. And you have, the one owner now of these companies that could be facing very similar antitrust suits. So there you have it. All of your news, postwrestling.com. And coming up this week, we still have a busy one coming at you on Wednesday. We will have Rewind to Dynamite. Wai Ting will be joined by Kate from Montreal on Wednesday night. And then Wai and I will be in a car on Thursday, and you will get 90 minutes of us for the latest edition of Talk. And that is up for Post Wrestling Cafe members. And that will be followed by Rewind to SmackDown Friday and Collision Course Saturday. So 3 cafe shows. And then Pollock and Thurston drops Wednesday, UFC 292, and the big one Sunday night, the NWA podcast.
Oh, man. Yeah, a whole lot. I mean, I thought the G1 would be over and we'd be a little bit calm, but I think we're almost as busy.
And what's happening for those that download Rewind to Raw? What are they getting with this show?
Ooh, yes. Well, first of all, if you are at youtube.com/postwrestling right now, you'll find John Pollock's interview with Zoe Stark. And those of you who have downloaded the show, you can listen to it right at the end of this particular podcast, which I'm sure is clocking in at almost 5 hours.
About that. So download Rewind to Raw or check out youtube.com/postwrestling. Zoe Stark, banned from ringside, not banned from post wrestling today.
No.
This is one Canadian outlet she did not have to be restricted from. But that is where we're heading. Winnipeg, the Canada Life Center, which AEW ran back in March. We're starting off the show with the Judgment Day, again, minus Finn Balor, who is not out. And Priest is not happy about this. He's given the big speech about Judgment Day, ruling everything, but complains about Balor. He should be out here. And Rhea does not want, they don't want to air their dirty laundry. And then Priest just started bringing up how Finn Balor doesn't move merchandise, and it just got really ugly here. He's a peg warmer. JD McDonagh is out and praises Judgment Day and that Balor passed along a message to focus on Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn tonight. And they shut down JD. They don't take orders from him. And Dom gets on the mic, and Winnipeg just boos the hell out of him. And Dominic with the best line. I just found out Canada is part of North America, so I guess I'm champion of this dump too. Great line.
Yeah.
And it ends with Rhea telling JD to tell Balor we need to talk. And with that, Sami Zayn and a much better looking elbow ran down to attack JD. And this turned into our impromptu match, Sami Zayn and JD McDonagh. So that was Sami Zayn's week off. He's back, but dealing with bursitis.
I guess, I mean, it's the type of injury that probably looks a lot worse than it actually is. You know, seem to have it drained and wrapped up. He seems like he's good to go. Kick it, you know, throw it against the post, do whatever you want with it.
Sami drained.
Yes.
So JD and Sami, they went 9.5 minutes here. And they made all they could out of this replay from last week. They showed the attack. Cole's pointing out, look at his elbow. Then they zoom in on the elbow. They made sure everyone could see this golf ball that was coming out of his elbow last week. So JD removes the elbow pad. And this did tie in well to the JD NXT character, the guy that, just systematically breaks down people.
The surgeon.
The surgeon. So there's a one-man Spanish fly by JD into a crossface, and then Zayn's back exploder, and Finn Balor comes out. This distracts Zayn. He kicks out of an O'Connor roll and then knocks Balor off the apron, proceeds to hit the haluva kick, and Sami Zayn prevails in 9:42.
Yeah. I know it's Canada, but man, I would have had McDonagh get a win tonight. And for that reason, I probably wouldn't have necessarily paired him against Zayn. I think for a new guy being inserted into an A storyline, I think you needed to establish him a little bit as somebody not to just be dismissed with a win. And especially with Sami Zayn being so injured and having Finn Balor and McDonagh still losing despite all that, I don't think this is the best way to treat McDonagh with what is essentially his real debut on Raw. That said, though, I think the closing angle at the end of the night did redeem him in a way, but I don't think this was a great start.
Yeah, I think overall, that's the story that they're telling, is that this is the guy that is, he was presented as the difference maker in the main event. You could certainly argue you're getting him off into this big story now with Judgment Day. Was this?
He can't beat a guy with one arm, but he hit people from behind.
Right. So maybe they were going to brawl into the lobby, and they decided, you know what, we can't do that more than once tonight. Gotta do it for sure.
No. Yeah.
Pierce is with Chelsea Green. What a segment this was. So we established Sonya Deville's out, and Chelsea does not want to give up the tag titles. So she asks, she's going to go to HR, and Pierce says, what is your idea to do with these belts? So Chelsea outlines what she's been doing on social media. She's going to hold auditions for a partner, and she's been probably just started this all out on her own. So she pitches this whole idea, and you're thinking, oh wow, they're going to take this idea and run with it on TV. And Caden Carter and Katana Chance come in, and they state, when Chelsea has a partner, we want to challenge. By virtue of the fact there are no other teams to challenge you guys. We literally don't even have a pair of champions to hold these belts. And with that, Piper Niven comes in, attacks Chance and Carter, steals the belt, and just informs Chelsea, I am now one of the tag champions.
Yeah.
You know, in 1988, this was like how WrestleMania 4, the tournament, was started when it was revealed. You can't just give a title to someone. But here, this looks exactly what they're doing, and they will not be doing Chelsea's audition idea. Piper Niven is your champion, winning by Adam Pearce's office.
Has there been precedents for this? Like, have like, you know, taking part, like, you know, partners who have been injured just like adopted a new teammate? I'm sure it has, right? But hard for me to think about it right now. Like last this happened.
Well, they've done a few this year where they
Liv and Raquel
with Trish and Lita, right? Where Trish
You're
subbed
right.
in for Becky one week. Like
True.
they've had like where they've subbed in, but this is like we have a wholesale new champion in Deville.
Well, you could sub in and lose the title, so why can't you sub in and just assume the championships, right? So I guess there is precedence for this. Yeah, I mean it's whatever. Like it's pro wrestling logic in the WWE that I just don't really think about all that seriously. I do think I mean, I just don't. I'm sorry.
There's no logic here. I'm telling you, the person who needs the lemon gimmick is Chelsea Green. Okay, the person making lemonade.
You're right.
Way more than Becky Lynch.
I'll say I love the pairing of Piper Niven with Chelsea Green. I think at this point, Piper essentially becomes like Chelsea's muscle. It adds credibility from an in-ring standpoint to Chelsea. So she's not just a Karen now, but a Karen with like a politically powerful friend that can actually ruin your life. You know, like maybe a Karen who's also like friends with a cop. The worst type of Karen. So I think it'll help accentuate the monster qualities of Niven, and it'll probably help accentuate some of the character qualities of Chelsea as well.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see where this one goes. Byron is with Cody Rhodes. He says Judgment Day is very dangerous. I haven't wrestled in Winnipeg in years. I think they were just let's make sure that the American Nightmare is cheered in Winnipeg, and he was. Imperium come out, and Gable they establish as the next challenger for the IC title, but it's not happening tonight. And Gunther says, as a European, I've always looked forward to coming to Canada, but I realized this is the armpit of Canada. I was like, Gunther, you need to visit some more places in Canada. Winnipeg is not it, okay? It's not the armpit. And he's achieved more in a year than Gable has in his entire career.
I'm trying to think of like a map of Canada and like where an armpit. I mean, Canada, if you look at the map, it does kind of look like it's like an arm flexing. And sorry to say, like
where would the armpit technically be?
You know what? Unfortunately, it'd probably be somewhere in BC.
Sorry.
Like, look at this. You know, if we're talking strictly like anatomy, right? Like this looks like an arm. This is like the Quebec would be the fist. Newfoundland and Labrador would be the fist, and then it means I'm sorry, Vancouver, you're more the armpit.
That's Pity City.
Yeah, the most beautiful city, of course, in Canada might have to be the armpit geographically.
Gable comes out and he says Gunther is on the clock as he's just weeks away from setting the new IC title record, but Gable is the one standing, and he's been waiting for 10 years for this chance. And Kaiser comes in and calls Otis a fat freak, and that Maxine should surround herself with European elegance. The two of us would be A+ aesthetics. And Alpha Academy is a sinking ship, but she is reaching out. He's reaching out to save her. Don't allow this 360-pound anchor to drag you down where you'd become an absolute embarrassment. And she slaps Ludwig Kaiser. And dude, Kaiser was awesome here.
He was great. He's been given extended time on the microphone, and I'm sure that's because of just his own talents. I feel like the Graves impression probably helped in a way too, because now he's actually become a figure in the spotlight. He's now known for this very distinctive promo style that he seems to be just amplifying, and they're giving him more time on the microphone. He continues to be tremendously unique and entertaining.
I think like there's a great story to be had here of Maxine ending up with Kaiser. Like you've already now created this rift where Gunther is just like has no place for that girl that's distracting you. And yeah, like Kaiser, like Maxine leaving Alpha Academy and ending up with Kaiser. I think those two could be a great pairing together. So Gable and Giovanni Vinci, the enforcer of Imperium. Gable lands on his feet from a moonsault, takes a rolling fireman's carry, and then Vinci lands the moonsault, but it's Gable coming back with the chaos theory in 5:07. And Gunther is furious. He says that's not how it ends tonight. Otis is the armpit of humanity and challenges him. So it's the armpit in the armpit taking on Gunther here in a non-title match.
What's Gunther then?
Gunther is the bicep.
Okay. Yeah, right.
So Otis gets in some offense. Cole reminds us that Doink too was a clown, but he was dangerous. So probably catching up on his dark side now that he's traveling so much, multiple times per week. They trade lariats on their feet. Neither goes down. Otis rips off the shirt. Caterpillar gets cut off and then power bombs Otis in 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So Gunther wins, but Gable gets in. German suplex to Gunther, and we're going to be getting that IC title match in Quebec City next week. The U.S. Olympian versus the Austrian for the Intercontinental title in Quebec.
Well, it's intercontinental, right? It makes sense. Yeah. I thought they're doing a pretty good job of building to this match. They're making both guys look strong, and Gunther always looks strong. But I think Gable, even though nobody thinks he probably has a chance of winning, especially this close to the honky tonk record, nonetheless, I think it's the most serious program that Gable has had in years, and I think he'll benefit greatly just from being a part of it.
Hopefully you get a red hot crowd in Quebec City next week, and they could tear the house down if they get the time next week, which they should. I hope they do. Yeah.
And where does the Maxine thing go from here? Because you'd think that Maxine and Kaiser would stay attached. So beyond this match, Gunther against Gable, would they do anything else with those two?
Japanese Ocean Cyclone suplex delivered by Maxine to
Kaiser. Wow, amazing.
Balor and Priest are arguing in the back, so Rhea gets in the middle. They're losing their killer instinct. They need to reestablish this, and JD enters, apologizes for the loss earlier, as Priest says, this is Judgment Day business, but Balor says they can show the world how strong they are tonight when Balor takes on Cody Rhodes. Tonight, we're going to handle business. They recap the Hail to the Chief segment on SmackDown and noting how Jay quit the WWE, and to make it official, Wade Barrett reminds us that Jay has been moved to the alumni section of WWE.com. So it's over. It's done. The career's over. That's like informing USADA that you're out of the pool, the testing pool.
I appreciate at least the effort to do something relatively small online to sell it.
Earlier today, Jackie Redmond caught up with Drew McIntyre, and he's asked what's next. But before he can answer, Riddle interrupts, and he's just talking a mile a minute that there was an open challenge from the Viking Raiders. He accepted, and he wants Drew to be his partner and suggests that they could be called Edinburgh or Glasbro. And Drew cannot get a word in and then shuts him up and finally says, if you can't find a partner, I'll consider it. And Drew walks off. There was a video for Indi Hartwell, and so it seems like she's healed, she's ready to go, and they're trying to give her like an earnest start on Raw, where she says she struggled to find who she was. Doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will, and this was all featuring like different highlights at NXT, winning the title, coming from Melbourne, and facing Rhea Ripley tonight. So it was like this great video. It's like, oh, and they're going to murder her in about an hour. So nonetheless, they at least had a video here for Indi Hartwell, so you had something for her rather than just being Candice's +1.
I mean, she really is that. Yeah. But still, it's nice to at least be reminded of who this person actually is.
Do you think they're going to reintroduce Johnny Gargano, since everyone's probably forgotten about him?
I'm sure they're saving him for something good, I hope. What other reason would they have? Because I believe he's ready.
To the best of my knowledge, he is. I mean, unless he's like showing up at the building and being told, actually, we don't need you tonight.
I mean, I'm sure there's no good story, or they're just waiting for something. I mean, you have a lot of pieces left.
It's a long time, dude, to come up with a story for this guy.
I mean, it's true. But listen, look at all the options that are out there for him. You have a Ciampa, you have an Austin Theory now who's not really doing anything, or at least not, doesn't have the U.S. title that they can pair him with again.
The Viking Raiders took on Riddle and Drew McIntyre, and
the Glass Bros, it looks like, is going to be the name.
Yeah. Dude, the way Drew was playing this up, like I thought for sure he was turning on Riddle in this match. Like it was so over the top from Drew.
Will come, I'm sure.
Like they're obviously playing this out, but it's like they're giving you all the hints in the world here.
Oh, Riddle was being extra obnoxious. Yeah,
he was being obnoxious. He wouldn't tag him, and there was more to come. They laid it even thicker with the New Day segment, but they also note that Drew has not responded to Wade Barrett's texts or calls since SummerSlam. The dreaded lack of communication angle. Never good.
Setting up a comeback.
Never good. Cole thinks they could be called the Scottish Highlanders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They could be, Cole. So Riddle's double teamed. He fights back, and dude, they go through the commercial break. It's been all Riddle. Drew is just hanging out on the corner. Finally, he gets the tag. He runs wild on the Vikings. Eric lands a knee. Riddle tags back in, and he hits a floating bro to Ivar on the floor. At one point, Ivar and Eric go for the move where Eric lifts up Riddle, and Ivar does the springboard, and dude nearly killed himself slipping, but managed to hit the move. Eric then re-enters the ring after Ivar's taken out on the floor, runs right into the Claymore, and Drew pins him in 9 minutes and 33 seconds.
Mm-hmm. It seemed like just a match to really establish the Glass Bros. I hate that we have to say it, but yes.
The Edinburghs are much better, I feel.
But I think Barrett said that Drew's not actually from Edinburgh, so can't really.
Well, he's not actually from Glasgow either, is he?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
is he?
I don't think he's from either one of those cities.
Don't they bill him from Glasgow?
They bill plenty of people. Look it up. I'm pretty sure his actual.
Like what's his build hometown?
Okay, well,
I can't even pronounce. Ayr. Okay.
Ayr, Scotland.
Ayr.
That's where he's from. The Ayr Bros.
I'm sure they'll come up with something. Listen, we never got the Randy turn on Matt Riddle, even though, like, I think for months and months and months, we were all like they were delaying.
Oh, so they're going to do this for 18 months?
Hopefully not, but I think they can finish that particular story. But with Drew subbing in for Randy Orton, where, you know, they build up this wonderful run, maybe give them the tag team titles, have a lot of great chemistry in ring together, and then out of nowhere, hit this annoyance. Finally catches up to Drew, and he just claymores the shit out of Riddle out of nowhere. So let's see how they do it.
Yeah, I think for Drew, though, at this point, like you need top level heels, and I would hate to see this guy. Like, quite honestly, Riddle's at a level, and I think he's staying at this level. And if he
beats, like, Riddle is most lovable when he's sort of like, you know, friendly, like sidekick to the serious guy. Like the Randy pairing worked wonderfully. If Randy, you know, like,
I think they were a lot higher on Riddle during the Randy program. Like they have very much, like, Riddle is just, he's just become a guy.
But in a tag team setting, especially with Drew, I think you can make him look strong. You can make the team look strong. As long as the team is over, the turn will resonate with people. And that, I think, would be a great way to turn Drew heel.
Raquel, I love this in wrestling. So, like, you are not cleared. You can't wrestle, but you make your way all the way to the building. And Raquel informs Candice and Indi she's still not cleared and tells Indi to go show what she's made of tonight.
Would you have preferred this if this was like a Zoom call with Raquel?
I wish Raquel could come out every week and go, Indi. This is our Roderick Strong, Raquel.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Riddle and Drew are in the back, and Riddle thinks that they're going to win the tag titles. And New Day overhear this. It's Kofi's birthday, and he's celebrating it here in a backstage segment. And they bring up the fact it was Drew that landed on him that broke his ankle. And Xavier Woods starts stating how the tag division has lost its mind, including the Street Profits thinking they're Shelton and Cedric now. And they challenge Drew and Riddle to a match next week. And Riddle accepts on their behalf, and Drew just shakes his head and walks away. He doesn't even get to respond. So that match is happening in Quebec City. And in theory, the winners will get a tag title shot against our champions that one is incapacitated and the other is got a small child growing out of his elbow.
But he's wrestling, though.
He's wrestling. And for some reason, they had chairs here. Maybe they just wanted seats. Maybe it was like standing room only in the back, and they don't want to give up their chairs.
Could be that. Yeah. What do you think of Woods' new hair?
It looks nice.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, actually. I'm ready for either of these teams to turn heel. I'm waiting for, like,
what if they all turn on each other?
Yeah, I'm waiting for three of the four men. All four of them should just turn heel. And I don't know, what do four bad guys make? I don't know, but I mean, I see the I could see Drew and Riddle winning and really, like, making a real run for these tag titles. But where does that leave the New Day? You know, conversely, I could see the New Day winning and just, because they need 17 more championships. And then could this be the time that you might turn Drew on Riddle like this quickly? I don't think it would resonate as well as, if you firmly
It wouldn't, but I honestly, like, I don't need a 3-month Riddle Drew program. I feel like the money here is just getting Drew into a heel role, and Riddle can be the transition to that heel role. And if we're just going to speed this up, they should win this match. They lose to Owens and Zayn, and then we get the breakup. And you can do that over 4 weeks. You don't have to do that in record time either. You could stretch this out to Payback and have, although that would break the streak and force them to put Owens and Zayn on a pay-per-view.
Right.
So there is that.
Yeah. Apparently there's Darius is saying the chairs are a pop culture reference. I'm sure.
Then you have to explain the pop culture reference.
Oh, you know what it is? It's the the Sterlington police, who I believe were made into did some sort of viral video where they're talking about chair defense. Anyway, yeah, it's a meme.
Okay. Rhea Ripley beat Indi Hartwell in 3 minutes. They explained these two met 11 years ago in Australia, and we didn't get any more beyond that. Indi got driven into the post twice. Rhea gave a crotch chop to Candice, attacked Candice, and Indi, her big spot was an inside cradle, and Rhea kicked out of that and hit the riptide and won.
Again, like she's kind of Candice's +1, who is Raquel's +1. So both
the
of
number
these
2 contenders to the women's tag titles.
I guess so, yeah. But both of these two are really just sort of like build-ups for Raquel.
Then Candice attacked Rhea, and Indi got in a flapjack, and they double-teamed Rhea and exited. So it looks like she'll have to kill Candice too. Nakamura's out for his interview with Michael Cole in the ring. This was an interesting way that they came up with this. So for Heat, Nakamura is going to speak in a foreign language, and this is going to anger the audience. So Cole asks him why he attacked Rollins, and he answers in Japanese. So this brings out the what chance. And then Rollins interrupts him. So speak Japanese. It'll make people mad.
I mean, I felt like it could have been that. I think it was maybe also a way to show a bit of maybe his personality by letting him speak more than just a few words. I mean, I'm not sure. It was an interesting tactic. I could say it probably didn't necessarily work because it just prompted what chance. And maybe they don't.
I'm sure the idea was like they don't know what he's saying, and they wanted the crowd to boo his answer.
He translated it, but I'm assuming the translations were wrong.
He summarized, but it was like after like 45 seconds of speaking in Japanese. Like that seems to be like that's where they want to upset the crowd while also getting across a message as well to this.
I'd love to know if he's actually saying those things in Japanese or if he's just saying something completely different and then he's just letting the internet translate it.
Well, Rollins comes out to cut this off and basically says all Nakamura had to do was ask for a title shot and he would have given it to him. He used to respect Nakamura, but doesn't anymore, and decides that in order for me to get revenge on you, I have to give you what you want, which is a title match. So name the time and the place. They shake on it, and Nakamura whispers something into his ear. And this is the big cliffhanger of this segment. What did he whisper into the ear of Rollins? And with that, Rollins is stunned, and he gets hit by a Kinshasa from behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an interesting attempt at like trying to give Nakamura sort of like a substantive like program, you know. They're letting him let his sort of like charisma do most of the talking here, and they're giving him like good like physical sort of like I don't know, shine to end these segments, similar to what they did with Ricochet and Logan Paul. So yeah, it's fine.
Saxton is with The Miz. He says he verbally tore down LA Knight last week. He's better on the mic than him. And next week, I'm going to beat someone that is bigger and tougher than LA Knight has ever beaten. And I might show up on SmackDown Friday or not. I guess this is because that's the only way he could interact with LA Knight.
Yes.
You have to go to the other man's show. LA Knight can't come to Raw, but you can, as a Raw talent, go to SmackDown. That's how it works.
Oh, LA Knight can come to Raw as well.
Yeah. But he couldn't tonight.
He didn't want to.
I don't blame him.
he already beat the Miz, right?
He wasn't going to the armpit.
No, in Winnipeg, yeah, no.
Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch. So this is the rematch that they have billed for weeks. That, this was never announced for SummerSlam. We didn't change anything. This is how we do things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Zoe Stark is banned from ringside, and Becky now comes out. She's got a lemon t-shirt.
Yes, she's selling this. Yeah.
Stratus started with the with her nose guard on, and at one point, Becky kicked it off, and then Trish put it back on. And dude, she was having a lot of trouble with this nose guard. Like, I don't think she's had to wrestle too often, or at least at length with this thing, because this thing was like, she was constantly adjusting this, and like, it was messing up her rhythm early on. The worst of it, where she had like a rare miss on the stratosphere into the corner, where she had to go for it on a second attempt, and then she takes the mask off on the floor, revealing her nose is healed, and she tries to use it as a weapon, but Becky goes to stop it, but Becky still gets thrown into the turnbuckle. We come back. Trish hits a spear for a 2 count, Becky with a superplex, and then they fight to the floor over the barricade, and it's not playoff rules here. This was not Red Shoes. They were counted out in record time. 11:29, the crowd boos, and they fight up into the concession area where Trish started throwing t-shirts at her as a weapon. And Becky is going to go for a manhandle slam onto the merch stand when Zoe appears in a hoodie and attacks Becky. And they double team her, and she's laid out with a chick kick, which sets up Adam Pearce, who is furious by them once again getting out of the match. And he says, the next time you guys face off, it will be a steel cage match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought this, even beyond like maybe the mask issues, I thought it was a pretty ugly match, Yeah, like I think Trish doing this at her age is absolutely amazing, but if she's gonna like enter this field, I have to kind of like judge this by modern I guess standards, and I thought this was like a pretty bad match, and she looked sloppy in here. Beyond that, I felt the crowd was pretty quiet for most of this. I just didn't think this was good.
Yeah, for a big match that had been promoted. And I'm sure many people thought this was going to be the big blow-off. Unless you felt like the fact that they were going on so early, they'd maybe have an unsatisfying ending. But regardless, you're right. Like, it didn't have a lot of heat. I don't know if you defer, like she was legit having a ton of problems with this mask. But yeah, the especially the first half of this match, like, a lot of stuff was off, like a lot. It just was not a smooth, like, WWE level, like, television match for the stuff that was getting, it just felt very awkward for a lot. And then you had a bad finish on top of it, and they're squeezing out another match. So I don't know if they end up doing this on television, if it's payback, but obviously they feel, they can get another couple of weeks out of this. And they did not state when this would be.
It's all about the lemon and how you squeeze it, says Denji 2006. So certainly squeezing every last drop out of this one.
Imperium's backstage, and Gunther calls tonight an embarrassment and asks what he should do with Vinci, who has failed again, and says, you've been a disappointment ever since coming to Raw. And Kaiser, you neglected your duties by being focused on that girl. Kaiser promises it will never happen again. He's willing to go to Adam Pearce, and Gunther cuts him off. I will go to Adam Pearce, and I will do what I always do. Sort this out myself, and I will defend this title against Chad Gable next week. I'm really enjoying, like, the three of these. Like, Vinci is just kind of like the punching bag in all of it. But
I wish they would let him speak more.
He never gets to talk. Kaiser has been excellent since they let him talk more. And I'd say Gunther, they clearly have a ton more confidence. This guy's getting talking segments every single week now. And, like, he's never been a bad talker, but you can see he clearly has that presence of the overbearing leader of the group. And yeah, they've done like a pretty good job of building up a lot of these groups. I guess now you're sort of just getting, it's sort of building up like these dividing lines within all of these groups, that there is a lot of crossover when you're doing it with the Bloodline as your big angle, with the Judgment Day, and to a lesser degree, an Imperium.
I guess so. But I mean, that, like, the stories in professional wrestling are all based on intention, right? Yeah,
it's like you can't have friends in this business. Eventually, you'll hate each other. Next week, it's Drew and Riddle against A New Day and Gunther against Chad Gable in Quebec City. Main event, Cody Rhodes against Finn Balor. Cody is in control early on. Then Dom.
Oh, they also announced Trish and Zoe in a cage.
They announced that for next week?
I don't know if it's... Did they say next week?
They just said the next match will be a steel cage match, but they didn't announce it for next week.
Sorry. You did go over that. Yeah.
Cody and Finn Balor. So Dom and Rhea show up, and Dom starts attacking them. They go through the commercial. Then Damian Priest shows up, and it's Balor avoiding the Cody cutter and nails him with a shotgun dropkick, misses with the coup de grace, and encounters a crossroads. And then Cody comes back, hits the Cody cutter, and Balor rolls out to the floor. Priest trips up Cody, and then there's a sidestep of Balor, and Cody dives onto both Priest and Balor. And with Rhea distracting the referee, Dominic crotches Cody on the buckle, and then Dom slides a chair into the ring. The referee stops it, takes the chair, like he was Kofi and Xavier holding the chair. And as he goes to deal with Rhea, Balor is in the ring, and Priest goes to slide the briefcase in, but he slides it past Balor, and it goes into the hands of Cody. Balor looks furious, and Cody nails him with the briefcase, hits the crossroads, and wins the match in 14 minutes. So Dom and Priest, they are on the attack. Sami Zayn runs out with a chair, and it looks like the babyfaces are going to prevail here when JD McDonagh comes to the rescue and nails Zayn from behind, and the Judgment Day take over. There's a South of Heaven to Cody, a pair of coup de graces to Cody, one to Zayn off the steps on the floor, and the big one was Zayn going through the table, the desk with the razor's edge, and they go off. The crowd is booing. JD is on the floor. He's not posing with the Judgment Day, but he's the one that's kind of giving credit for Judgment Day prevailing, and now they are fortifying their strength once again. They're all back together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this closing angle a lot. First of all, I thought the match was really good. Crowd reactions might not have been as big as I was expecting, but I thought in ring it was a really good match, and they found another clever way of maybe continuing to tease these Balor Priest issues. But it was more so the closing segment or closing beatdown that I thought was really effective in increasing the sort of seriousness of Judgment Day as this sort of like actually like pretty violent group, and also it put all of them onto the same page and also gave them a reason to potentially introduce JD McDonagh as part of the group as well. So good continued storytelling with Judgment Day.
Yeah, I like the idea. It's like we've teased the breakup, and now we're going to take a step back, and I think like they're going to continue these little fractures every now and then, but now you have like the JD involvement that should, like, this should be almost his initiation into the group. Like he's kind of put Damian Priest at ease to allow this guy into the group. And that can play, like, obviously this guy is scheming at some level with Balor. And so you have their guard
or against him.
Yeah, there's that too. So anyway, that was Raw. I didn't think this was the most enticing episode of Raw. I thought that there was I can't, like, the main event I thought was it was fine. I didn't think we got any like real like home run segments on this show.
Honestly, it's pretty hard for me to assess an entire like 3-hour show into like a few sentences because there's so much that happens, and by this point I already feel so far removed from it that I can't give any like proper.
What was your favorite hour of Raw?
I mean, I don't know, like 8:30 to 9:31.
Okay, that was a good 61 minutes of the show.
Yes.
Let's read a bit of feedback here from Muggin, who writes in, I was a fool for thinking the Becky Trish feud would end here, but once again, a non-finish reared its ugly head. The cage match better be in Quebec City, or is Payback a better option? I don't know. Winnipeg's tepid atmosphere damn sure didn't help. Anyway, there were things to like here. The women's tag titles are equivalent to the Madden cover curse, but Piper Niven returning is a start to get away from that stigma. Judgment Day continue to dominate Raw, and JD McDonagh worming his way into the picture could lead to more friction. Yeah, they did not announce it for next week. I would think if the cage match was going to be next week, they would have stated as much.
Right.
You could hold that off. It's one, you could do it on TV. You could also do it on
Payback.
Payback is the next show. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They could put it on last at Payback, and then Hunter can go into the press conference and state, everyone was so negative about SummerSlam. You don't know, because 75% of the stuff that's out there is lies. We know what we're doing here.
More likely, the cage match could get DQ'd somehow, and then they'll find a way to book another match.
Just keep this one running.
Yeah.
This could be, let's get a year out of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going. All right. We are not going to keep going. We are going to sign off. Thanks to everyone.
Actually, we are, for people that have downloaded the show.
That's true. I'm already incorrect on that front. So if you're listening live, we are going to bid farewell to you. But if you have downloaded the show, then you have a Zoe Stark interview coming your way as we talk about her devastating knee injury at the end of 2021 and her whole rehab to get back to NXT, and then the call up to Raw, the recent work with Trish Stratus. So this was from SummerSlam weekend where we got a couple of minutes with Zoe Stark. So check that one out. And we are back later this week. You've got Up Next on Tuesday night with Braden and Davey, their final episode before they head over to London, England. And then Wednesday night, Wai will be manning the ship here alongside Kate from Montreal for Rewind to Dynamite. So that is it for us, and have a great night. Have a great day, and every other of your favorite hours of the day.